What's that one cringe-inducing memory from years ago that you can't get out of your head? High school play. I start improvising. I don't even know why I did it. I just got so into the moment I forgot there was a script. God, I can't even describe it in complete sentences. I hate me in that moment. Takes a true actor to be so in the moment you forget there is a script. Doing a practice for a play in front of a small crowd of like maybe 35-50 people when I crap my pants. Middle of my lines I felt the wetness and had to run off stage. I kept myself locked in a room the rest of the day. Once got my period in the middle of a scene in a junior school play. I was 12/13. That crap sucks. In 5th grade I went to school on Halloween costume day completely dressed up like a pirate. Makeup, costume, hair, everything. Walked into school only to realize no one else was wearing a costume and that dress up day was tomorrow. Had to wait until lunch for my mom to bring me new clothes. That's one of my top fears. Even now that I'm a teacher I have the exact same fear every time there is a non-uniform or dress up day. Went for an interview and handed the person my coat when they were trying to shake my hand. Update. I did not get the job unfortunately. A few years later I went to another interview during which my stomach would not stop growling, which is one of my worst nightmares made real. Somehow got a job there, lol. When they take your coat confused, you sit in their chair and begin interviewing them. At the end of a great job interview, shook the guy's wrist instead of his hand and held on like I meant to do it. Didn't get the job. Right, I grew up in an extremely sheltered household so my brain just didn't know what racism was and we were trying to pick teams for basketball and I tried to organize by color. I was a stupid child. I was interested in a guy but didn't know how to start a conversation with him. We were standing next to each other while preparing food for a barbecue and I just thought it was a good idea to start a conversation with. I like the feeling of touching raw meat. This was in school. We were playing a game where one person chased everyone else, and when they touched you, you had to go to jail. That meant you had to put your arms inside the torso part of your sweater, and the sleeves got tied around a pole. You had to get loose to be free again, either on your own or by the help of someone else. I think I was about 11 at the time. I got caught and tied to a pole, but I was wearing a hoodie with a zipper, so I felt incredibly smart when I unzipped it from the inside and ran away shouting HA. Thing is, I had forgotten to put on a t-shirt under the hoodie, and I was an early bloomer, so I basically showed the whole schoolyard my recently grown tee. Shudder. Until the lousy sentence I read it as you being a guy and thinking what a great move. Then that last sentence came in bringing the wave of cringe. When I was 16 I got set up with a family friend's daughter. We started dating in a long distance relationship. After a month or so it was school holidays and I went up to visit her. I didn't have a lot of money but I wanted to buy her a gift. I settled on a beautiful jigsaw puzzle. She wasn't too happy about the gift because she was blind. Yes, I bought my blind girlfriend a jigsaw puzzle. In the moment it seemed very appropriate because each piece was unique, right? She can feel the pieces, right? Pure effing cringe. Still haunts me. Wow, this is brutal. I was walking back to my car after a grocery trip and an older gentleman said hello to me as I walked past. My brain completely short-circuited and I responded with GGGGGG and quietly trailed off, averting my gaze and walking faster. This actually makes me laugh because it's believable. Happens all the time, and yet is still funny. If it helps you at all, the old man probably had a light laugh then forgot about it too. This kind of thing happens all the time. Old man probably understands perfectly. Definitely that time my professor asked what I did over the summer, and I wanted to say hanging around and catching up with sleep. All I managed to blurt out was sleeping around. That wasn't even true. Classmates may have envied you though. The time my internet access was shot over a weekend, so I went to work as usual on Monday, and stayed and worked all day, and only found out I'd been fired the week before when I got home. Small, very high profile business. Everyone was acting weird all day. I soft broiled myself to sleep in this memory. When I was 16 I offered to take a girl I liked to the movies. I approached the ticket counter and asked for one movie ticket. Immediately realized I was an idiot, but was too embarrassed to rectify my mistake. She purchased her own ticket to the movie. Still haunts me almost 10 years later. That's definitely something I would do, LMAO. I was a bit drunk at a friend's wedding and decided to scroll all over 2 pages of her wedding book to fill up some space. Later someone was looking at the book and I heard them say, "Look at this. What sort of person does that?" I still feel bad when I think about it. Trying to run away from home when I was 6 only to stop at the start of the driveway because I was always told that it was dangerous to walk on the street without an adult. My parents have this really nice photo of me, with my little backpack, standing there looking really conflicted. My sister ran away when she was like 11 or so. She left a note that said, "You'll never find me. I'm at neighbor's house." We found her. I fell into a fountain, not once but 3 different times in 3 different fountains, on a trip to Europe with a group of kids from school when I was in 7th grade. Of course my crush and his friends went on this trip and they proceeded to call me Fountain Girl till high school graduation. When I told everyone that I was auditioning for the national talent show in my country and got rejected after singing 2 verses in the producers' auditions, that made for an awkward return to school. Well, that means you were probably average. They send the bad ones through to the televised auditions because it makes good TV apparently. I was bullshitting my way through a presentation in college on tanks in World War II and this kid just got so sick of my crap that he called out from the back of the class and corrected me in front of the whole class while my professor avoided eye contact with me. Never bulls stuff about World War II technology. There's always one kid who knows his stuff and will correct you. Farted in class during a test back in middle school. Everybody knew it was me but I was too awkward to confirm or deny it, so I just acted oblivious. That fart must have been pretty awful because a bunch of classmates around me covered their noses with their shirts and the teacher cracked open a window. Just the complete awkward silence that followed the fart and the feeling of everybody staring at me in disgust still makes me shudder with cringe whenever I think about it. So for context, I went to a really sheltered Catholic high school, so didn't really know how the real world worked. My first job when I was 16 and I'm being introduced to all my co-workers. One of them named Morris, who was obviously homosexual, asked me if I was too. I wasn't but wanted to let him know I was cool with it. Again Catholic high school, and said no but I'm open-minded about it. To which he responded, "We're gonna work on that." What an awkward summer. I cringe every time. Oh my, LOL. We weren't allowed to sleep with our doors shut. I woke up earlier than everyone else most days and on this day decided to rub one out before everyone woke up. Grabbed the lotion, put it under my second pillow all smooth like so no one would see it if they walked by. About halfway through the deed my aunt raised me, rips her door open, which is positioned about 15 feet directly across the hall from my room and perfect view to my bed. I was so $at and I'm scared that I literally sat straight up, one hand under the covers. She saw me and goes, "Hey," and starts walking over. I sat there frozen, like I saw a bus speeding directly at me but I couldn't move, junk still in hand. She comes in my room and goes, "What's going on, sweetie? Are you okay?" I just awkwardly say, "Yeah, you just scared me." She laughs and sits on the bed next to me, directly on the pillow and hears a crunch. Looks at me, stands up and picks up the pillow, looks back at me, I am mortified, and starts walking out. She didn't even turn back to look at me, just grabs the door to shut it and says, "I think you're old enough to sleep with this closed now." I didn't leave my room all day. TLDR. Aunt caught me wanking, sat on my lotion bottle, became a big boy. Oh good, I thought the crunch meant that she sat on your dong. I fell asleep in my high school history class. I was all the way in the back of the room so the teacher never noticed, until I farted in my sleep so loud that it woke me up and my head shot up and smacked against the back wall. Never heard the end of it. So much stuff happened in the span of 2 seconds. In the 1st grade I moved to a new school in a small town. 2 months in I would literally lose bowel function for no apparent reason. Totally watery and intense abdominal cramps. I was shy and didn't have any friends yet. I was embarrassed and would just sit there in my own mess until the teacher noticed. This went on every day. Eventually they sent me to the principal's office and the nurse teacher, and my parents thought I was just seeking attention. Despite packing 2 new pairs of undies and pants each day, I would still be soaked at the end of the day. Over the next 2 weeks I kept getting in trouble. I was held in from recess and had to sit in the hallway alone when I ran out of clothes for the day. I had to eat lunch alone and spent at least half of my days sitting by myself in the hallway staring at the wall. When my parents finally took me to the doctor, they found a strange intestinal infection with no cure. It eventually went away. So for 1 month in a new school I was that shy weird kid who smelled bad and couldn't participate in any activities. I graduated HS 12 years later with the same small class of students. It wasn't until my 10-year class reunion that one of my classmates, now a nurse, told me they all felt so bad for me and never brought it up because they felt like I was being abused when they saw me sitting alone in the hall in my soaked clothing. This restored my faith in how kind other kids can be. That's nice. Glad it went away. I'm a Canadian and we had this show in the 2000s called Radio Free Roscoe. I was obsessed with this show. I watched it religiously on the Family Channel. My aunt had a friend who was a makeup artist for the show, and so she managed to get us on set to meet the cast and visit all the different places. My 11-year-old self was ecstatic. It was the most incredible thing to happen to me. My brother and my cousin went with us. We get to the set and it's amazing and everything I had hoped it would be. We got to see them film a scene and see all the behind the scenes stuff. It was incredible. We went to do the meet and greet with the cast and I was so nervous but excited. I'm an awkward girl and super oblivious, especially when I'm nervous. Kate Todd, the female co-star, was being super sweet with me because I was the only girl in our group. She called me over to sit with her for the photos and used her hand to pat the seat beside her. Being oblivious, I missed the seat pat and went and sat directly on her lap. I'm 27 years old now and I still remember her saying okay in a super surprised voice. I was mortified that I just sat on her dang lap like a baby instead of beside her like she intended. I honestly couldn't look anyone in the eyes again after that. I still cringe to this day thinking about sitting on her dang lap. She was super sweet about it, but I knew I had fricked up. I've read at least 100 of these responses and yours is the first to make me cringe. So my mom had won this prize at a big shopping center. She was allowed to take 3 guests for a day of shopping that included gift cards at various stores and a $250 gift card at a restaurant of her choice for us to eat at. Anyways, it was a big deal and they had a film crew come and tape some of it for their website. The reporter lady comes up to me when the food arrives and she's like, "That looks fantastic. What did you get?" And I was caught off guard, so I look at the camera and go, "Gift cards, ultimate cringe," and it took me about half a second to realize what she meant. When I think about it now, at least I can laugh about it. Could be worse. You could have said I like turtles and been immortalized on the internet. Doing a promposal for a girl who broke up with me 2 days after. Or 3rd grade spelling bee. I misspelled field and lost it on stage. I lost on a go, which I spelled confidently as a gal. Touching tongues with my younger sister. We wanted to know why tongues tasted like, so we stuck our tongues out, booped our tongues together, and almost vomited. Me and my sister used to do that too as kids. We thought it was funny and did it often, even in public. So when I was 8 or so, some of my parents' friends came over, and they brought their son, who was a few years older than me. I used to really idolize that kid for some reason. He just seemed cool and was always friendly toward me. So this particular day I happened to be lounging around in my pajamas watching television and I hadn't expected company. I don't know why, because wearing pajamas, especially as an 8-year-old boy, is not that big of a thing. But I was absolutely mortified when the kid came into the room to say hi, so I ended up running to the closet nearby and shutting the door. This was right in front of the kid. My parents couldn't get me out. The kid came up and through the door was like, "That's totally fine, bud. There's nothing for you to be embarrassed about. Come out and play. If you want you can go change first." But I wasn't having any of it. I was by this point more embarrassed about my reaction than being caught in pajamas, so I couldn't bring myself to come out until the kid and his parents left like 2 hours later. Or, this is perfect little kid cringe. We're so weird and emotionally confused at that age. The very first night my now wife spent at my place, Had only been dating a week, but I was super into her. We got crappy drunk before bed. The next morning I forgot she was there, still technically drunk, and ripped a once in a lifetime epic fart that was both echoing through the hallways and melting paint off the walls. I remembered she was there when she audibly laughed and said, "Oh my god." I pretended to still be asleep instead of addressing it. To this day I'm amazed she stuck around after that, but we're now happily married. Anyone that can survive that and still stick around is definitely a keeper, even if she still loves telling people that story years later. This guy in one of my classes in 8th grade I was friendly with BC. He didn't seem to be good friends with anyone else in the class. He was a nice kid, just maybe a little awkward, but we had good conversations about Lotus, so hey. Then one day at the end of the period we were both packing up our stuff and he says, "Hey, do you want to go out with me next Wednesday?" I wasn't interested in him that way, and I was so off guard that I froze like a deer in the headlights until I finally stammered up, "I think my mom has plans or bye," and basically ran out of the room. I still feel bad about it. Every time I saw him in middle school and high school after that I felt terrible. Sorry Colin. OMG. I did almost exactly the same and it also haunts me sometimes. We were in the school musical together and he was very nice, but I wasn't interested and was terribly awkward then. I froze up too and like ran away. I don't remember what I said to him or if I even said anything. Ran face first into a bench when I was 16 and cried, haha. Only one person saw, and of course it was my crush at the time. Oof. Oh man. Some context. My best friend growing up was black. We were inseparable. We wanted to make video games together when we grew up. All that. Well, he went with me and another member of my family to the store. As we were driving, a man nearly ran into my other family member's car, and my other family member shouted, "Effing NR." It got quiet in the car. Then my other family member said to my best friend in the back, "You're not the NR I was talking to," as a way to apologize. I was young, but even then I knew something awful had happened. It completely changed how I looked at my other family member and how my best friend looked at my family. We stayed friends, but I had to hang out at his house since he stopped coming to mine. Couldn't blame him. Super cringy, life changing. GES. Cringed so hard I almost imploded. 5th grade, sobbing in front of the whole school when I lost the geography B to my best friend. I beat him next year though, then went on to get my butt kicked at regionals. My sons and their friend kicked their ball into the middle of a little pond at our local park. I let them use my walking stick to try get it out, but they couldn't quite reach. A man passing by with his son offered to help. He got the ball but dropped my stick. As he was reaching for the stick he fell in. He laughed. We laughed and he went off home to dry up. He returned 10 minutes later because once he got home he realized his phone was missing. His phone that contained baby pics of his son and newborn at home. We tried so hard to find that dang phone. I still feel bloody awful. Oh number. I was in my early 20s. Had a girlfriend of 3 years and we were like 2 years into our relationship. And one time after we had sex I said, and I still don't know what possessed me to say this, "God, this is so embarrassing." I said, "Where are you gonna find dong this good?" It was so awkward. And I think about it like once a month because it is easily the dumbest thing I have ever said, and it makes me cringe so bad. Someone punch me in the face. If it makes you feel better, I had an ex that, during a handy, said "milk me mummy." Guess he thought it was the male version of "choke me daddy." Could not continue. So I was having a psychological evaluation for a military school. The psychologist gave me 2 pieces of paper to draw a male and a female and name them. The male one was easy, I just have to draw myself and use my own name. I was having difficulty drawing a female and couldn't think fast, so my stupid butt drew the psychologist because she was cute. Then came the part where she started asking about the drawing. The male part went smoothly. When she asked about the name of the female I said "Actually it was you," plus a smirk. Then she straight up wrote the name of the drawing "Actually it was you." I still cringe about it up to now. I did laugh at this story, so don't worry. Went to the beach with 3 friends. 2 boys, 1 girl, at some point in late middle school. We were swimming in the ocean and I got knocked down by a huge wave. When I stood up to face my friends, the boys started screaming. I looked down, and there was my left boob on full display. threw that bathing suit out as soon as I got home. It always the left one. I spent a lot of time at my great-grandparents' house as a kid. My room didn't have a lock on the door. I was a preteen and it was the middle of the day, super bright in my room, and I was 100% naked, just laying on the floor and diddling. My grandma started coming in and I screamed, "UHHH, don't come in." She came in and saw everything, and just quickly left. I went out a little while later and said, I was really warm. So I took my clothes off. She just stared at me, silent. She wasn't mad or anything. I just stood up and went back to my room and she has never mentioned it since. First post. In elementary, the little elementary playground and the older elementary playgrounds were right next to each other and there was an imaginary line we couldn't cross. Me and my friends had the hugest crush on the big kid that played soccer. I was so stupid. I shoved a dodgeball up my shirt and yelled, "Hey, cute big kid, look, you got me pregnant. I have nightmares about it." Luckily he moved away. Trust me, he knows you were just a little kid. He probably doesn't even remember that. I was really quiet and stood up in the middle of class to say something. Finally speaking up, the room was silent. I slowly sat back down. Was a kid, 10, in a family vacation in Hong Kong and we were all in a souvenir store. I was walking around with my brother, 9, trying to find a cool toy to buy. It took me long enough to find one, but I was proud that I found it. I was amused by it and started talking about it to him. It was a large, stretchy and bouncy toy that had a cartoonish face on it. I was saying things like, "Wow, this is so cool," and proceeded to make the toy bounce a lot. I brought the toy towards my brother's face and shouted, "Boing, boing, boing," and that's when I realized that I wasn't talking to my brother anymore. It was a Chinese boy, assumably 10-12 years old. He stared at me with the most serious face ever. I legit felt so ashamed and ran away. I didn't bother to get the toy anymore. I have never been so traumatized in my life that until this day I still think about that Chinese boy's poker face. I thought it was going to be a dildo. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.